At precisely 0417 hours, positioned 312 nautical miles from Venezuela's territorial waters, a 53-year-old German-built submarine produced the ocean's most deliberate whisper. Hydraulic pressure shifting, torpedo tube doors cycling open. Within the hull of the Sabalo, 64 Venezuelan sailors operated under the conviction they were about to alter the trajectory of history. What they couldn't comprehend was that history had already documented this moment 6 days prior, analyzed by intelligence officers in Norfolk who anticipated this engagement before their submarine departed port. The vessel on the horizon resembled a floating metropolis. The USS Gerald R. Ford. 100,000 tons of American naval projection. 75 combat aircraft, a complement of 4,500 personnel. Construction costs totaling $13 billion. Through the Venezuelan captain's optics, it represented the ultimate strategic target. To the 3 Virginia-class attack submarines maintaining position at 2,000 yards, it represented a tactical equation with a singular outcome. What makes this engagement compelling is how Venezuela's submarine capability didn't disintegrate instantaneously. It deteriorated gradually, systematically, like organic matter exposed to tropical heat. 4 German-manufactured Type 209 submarines acquired in 1976, back when Venezuelan petroleum revenue could finance blue water aspirations. A naval force that commanded genuine respect across the Caribbean theater. Presently, 3 of those vessels occupy berths at La Guaira Naval Base, systematically cannibalized, stripped for components, skeletal frames depleted by a service incapable of procuring basic hardware. The Caribe hasn't achieved propulsion since 2014, lost its propeller shaft assembly in 2017. The Tarantula is absent its entire combat information center. Collectively, between all 4 submarines, Venezuela maintains sufficient operational components for approximately 1.5 functional boats. The Sabalo represents survival, marginally. Its diesel power plant hasn't received proper overhaul in 9 years. Its sonar array operates with vacuum tube technology that became obsolete during Reagan's presidency. The fire control computer executes software predating the iPhone. Venezuelan naval officers haven't conducted a live torpedo exercise in over a decade. Not from lack of desire, from inability to afford recovery of the practice weapons afterward. But here's the reality about desperate personnel operating dying machinery. They don't calculate probability the way rational strategists do. A regime confronting international isolation identifies opportunity where professionals identify suicide. Desperation operates under its own merciless calculus. The Caribbean isn't merely water. It's the most intensely surveilled body of ocean on this planet outside the Taiwan Strait. Every square mile between Venezuela and Florida is wired with SOSUS, the sound surveillance system. Underwater hydrophones planted throughout the Cold War to monitor Soviet submarines approaching American shores. These passive listening networks have been continuously upgraded for 5 decades. They register everything: whale migrations, shrimp colonies producing acoustic signatures, the thermocline boundaries where temperature gradients meet, and absolutely a Type 209 submarine operating on diesel engines designed before the digital age. When the Sabalo departed La Guaira 4 days prior, 17 different sensor networks logged its acoustic signature before it traveled 50 meters. American intelligence possessed the crew manifest, the fuel capacity, the captain's identity, his spouse's identity, his children's educational schedule. They possessed data on the submarine's maximum submerged endurance down to 60-minute increments. They possessed intelligence on which valves demonstrated leakage, which systems operated above thermal tolerances, which crew members had experienced illness during previous patrol cycles. The Venezuelans operated under the assumption they were phantoms navigating dark water. They were performers on a stage where every position was occupied by American analysts documenting observations. 0418 hours. The torpedo tube flooding sequence initiated. Seawater flooded into the forward section, generating a pressure differential that created a distinctive hydraulic signature. The acoustic transient propagated outward at 1,500 meters per second, 4 times the velocity of sound through atmosphere. To Venezuelan perception, it registered as preparation. To American sonar operators aboard the USS Mississippi, it registered as a starting signal. The detection occurred within 5 seconds. The Mississippi's BQQ-10 sonar suite classified the acoustic transient within 15. A Virginia-class attack submarine operating silently at 400 feet depth. Its own acoustic signature so minimal that marine mammals have been documented colliding with them. Weapon assignment required 30 seconds. Fire control solutions calculated for 2 Mark 48 AD cap torpedoes. Authorization to engage transmitted from Fleet Command. Safety protocols removed. The American crew waiting for precisely one directive, the order to fire. By the moment the Venezuelan captain's finger approached the firing mechanism, the Mississippi had acquired a firing solution on his engine room from 2,000 yards. Close enough to detect his pump operations. Close enough to enumerate his propeller revolutions. Close enough that the Mark 48's transit time would be measured in seconds rather than minutes. The Venezuelan weapon selection told its own narrative. The SUT heavyweight torpedo, revolutionary in 1971, wire-guided, 23 knots maximum velocity. A 260-kilogram warhead engineered to penetrate Soviet cruiser hull plating. Germany's response to underwater combat, preserved in operational stasis for half a century. 53 years afterward, it's a historical artifact being operated by sailors who've never witnessed it, function outside training documentation. The guidance wire connecting torpedo to submarine is copper, susceptible to fracture if the boat maneuvers with aggression, susceptible to failure if the torpedo encounters thermal layers it wasn't engineered to navigate. The weapon's terminal seeker uses active sonar technology from the Nixon administration. It can differentiate between a warship and empty ocean, but distinguishing between a carrier hull and the complex thermal environment of the Caribbean thermocline demands processing capability it simply doesn't possess. American Mark 48 ADCAP torpedoes travel at 55 knots. They utilize fiber optic guidance that doesn't fracture. They can operate autonomously with artificial intelligence-assisted target tracking. They navigate thermal layers like engineered pathways. The technological disparity isn't measured in years. It's measured in evolutionary generations. But here's what matters. A 260-kilogram warhead detonating beneath a carrier's keel doesn't evaluate manufacturing dates. Obsolete doesn't mean harmless. It means the personnel firing it won't survive long enough to observe the impact. The USS Gerald R. Ford doesn't operate alone. Its protection doesn't commence at the visible horizon. It extends 500 miles in every direction, enforced by assets most observers never perceive. Virginia-class submarines patrol ahead of the carrier battle group. Acoustic tripwires that detect any submerged contact within 200 miles. P-8 Poseidon aircraft fly search patterns overhead, deploying sonobuoy grids covering thousands of square miles. Each buoy transmitting real-time acoustic data to Fleet Command. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers maintain formation. Their SQS-53 hull-mounted sonar actively transmitting. Their SQR-19 towed arrays streaming behind like electronic fishing apparatus. Capable of detecting a snorkeling submarine at 40 miles. Capable of hearing a torpedo launch before the weapon clears the tube. The P-8 Poseidon flying methodical circles at 30,000 feet serves as the network's central processor. Its AN/APY-10 radar paints every surface contact within 150 miles. Its sonobuoy receivers process acoustic data from dozens of underwater sensors simultaneously. Operators positioned in climate-controlled comfort monitor the Sabelow's every movement on high-resolution displays. They note course alterations before the submarine's own navigator logs them. This is layered defense in its purest expression. Concentric rings of detection, each one redundant, each one feeding data to the next. The Venezuelan submarine would need to evade every single layer to reach weapons range. The probability of that occurring with 1970s technology against 2020's surveillance infrastructure is roughly equivalent to penetrating an airport using an invisibility cloak constructed of aluminum foil. The Venezuelan captain observed through his periscope and identified one target, the Ford. What he couldn't observe told the actual story. 3 American submarines, 2 destroyers, 4 aircraft, 19 sonobuoys. All monitoring, all waiting, all armed. The mathematics of contemporary naval warfare aren't complicated. You can't neutralize what you can't reach. You can't reach what's monitoring you from 6 vectors simultaneously. The Venezuelan captain issued the order. Fuego! The SUT torpedo launched from Tube 1, copper wire spooling behind it like a leash on a racing animal, 23 knots toward a target 18 miles distant. The American response was immediate and underwhelming. No torpedoes fired, no depth charges deployed, no explosions tearing through dark water. Instead, the USS Mississippi executed something far more devastating. It activated its active sonar at close range. One ping, loud enough to rattle fillings, loud enough to echo through every compartment of the Sabelow, loud enough that every man aboard instantly understood they were deceased if America wanted them deceased. That single ping transmitted more intelligence than any diplomatic communication. "We see you. We've been tracking you for 6 days. We have weapons locked on your engine room. You're alive because we choose to let you live." The Venezuelan captain comprehended instantly. His torpedo was still running, 18 minutes to potential impact. But his submarine had just been painted by a hunter he never detected. Somewhere behind him in the darkness, American torpedoes were aimed at his hull. He possessed 2 options: continue the attack and die within 90 seconds, or abort and surface. The wire was severed. The SUT torpedo, suddenly blind, initiated its terminal search pattern, circling, seeking, finding nothing. Its outdated seeker couldn't distinguish the Ford's massive hull from the Caribbean's complex thermal layers. After 11 minutes, it exhausted its fuel supply and sank. A $1.2 million museum piece settling toward the seafloor to join the shrimp colonies and whale bones. 0438 hours. The Sabalo surfaced. 64 Venezuelan sailors climbed onto a corroded deck and stared at an empty horizon. No American ships visible, no aircraft overhead, just blue water stretching to every horizon, and the humiliation of knowing they'd been monitored the entire time. The cost analysis wrote itself. Venezuela expended 1 SUT torpedo. Retail value $1.2 million. Operational deployment cost, including fuel and crew, roughly $3.4 million. Political cost immeasurable. The world's press would never report this incident, but every naval intelligence service on the planet would analyze it. America expended 1 sonar ping. Approximate cost in electricity about $47. The Virginia-class submarine that concluded the engagement never fired a weapon, never revealed its exact position, never risked a single sailor, never even accelerated beyond patrol velocity. This is the mathematics that keeps defense analysts employed. A submarine costing $2 billion to construct and $60 million annually to operate neutralized a 60-year-old threat with a sound wave. But the real calculation isn't financial, it's strategic. Destroying the Sabalo would have created an international incident, 64 casualties requiring explanation, diplomatic complications with every nation that sells weapons to Venezuela, congressional hearings lasting months. Most importantly, it would have given Caracas exactly what a failing regime craves: martyrs, international attention, a grievance to exploit for decades. Letting them surface peacefully accomplished everything without the complications. The Venezuelan Navy was humiliated, their operational capabilities exposed, their submarine force proven irrelevant against modern detection systems. And every other potential adversary received the same message carved in sonar pulses: "We see you before you see us. We track you before you deploy. We'll give you 1 chance to make the smart choice." After that, the math changes permanently. The Ford Carrier Strike Group continued its patrol unchanged, unbothered. The Sabalo limped back to La Guaira, its captain facing career-ending debriefings, its crew knowing they'd been outclassed by an enemy they never saw. In Caracas, generals stared at intelligence reports and confronted an uncomfortable truth. Their entire naval doctrine was built on assumptions that died 30 years ago. Their submarines weren't invisible, their torpedoes weren't unstoppable, their geography wasn't protection. The Caribbean belonged to whoever controlled the information, and the information belonged to America. This is how modern deterrence functions when nobody's watching. Not with explosions, not with body counts. With a single ping that communicates everything words cannot. We know where you are, we know what you're planning. We'll let you go home this time. Don't make us reconsider. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that subscribe button and share this video. The stories that never make headlines are the ones that matter most.